Here we are. Today, we've got the ugliest BMW M-car ever made. And no, the X6 and X5Ms do not count as M-cars. This is. And guess what? It's my ugly BMW M-car because I bought it. I sold my E60 M5, I sold my E92 M3, and I bought this manual G82 M4. Why? Why did I buy a G82 M4? Well, I really like it. You know, I drove one, my buddy has one in fact, and I drove it and I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. And plus I've kind of been missing a manual transmission in my life. And on top of that, I bought it knowing full well that this bumper, I was gonna get rid of it. This grille, one way or another, I was gonna change the front end of this car, whether it was gonna be the Vorsteiner grille or the CSL grille, or in my case, I'm gonna pop this overlay up right now, the ADRO bumper. And that's what I'm doing to my car. But this is a review, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna review the BMW M4 as it stands here. This is a 2021 model, so first year of production. It's a manual, as I had mentioned earlier. It is sapphire black, Fiona red interior, non-sport seats. Find them a little uncomfortable and a little tricky to get in and out of as well. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go over this car. We're going to talk about how it looks, how it drives, how it sounds. And once again, as you know, you've probably already heard how it sounds. This car has an aftermarket exhaust, so some grades are going to have little asterisks to them because I bought this car as it stands here with a few modifications. But the suspension score will reflect a stock car because I drove a stock car right prior to filming this. So let's go over the exterior. Now, okay, apart from, you know, all of this, the rest of the car, in my opinion, is really, really good looking. I mean, the width starting here, the mirrors, the quintessential aerodynamic mirrors of the modern day M-cars, and of course, carbon fiber roof. I really, really love carbon fiber roofs. They just give such a nice accent. In addition to the wider wheel flaring over here in the back. And honestly, I've got to say, the profile on this car is one of my favorite profiles of any coupe for sale at the moment. Let's take a look at this rear three-quarter view over here, starting from the taillights, the rear bumper, down to the front. I think this car just presents really, really well. It's got such beautiful presence. In my opinion, yes, the taillights are a little Acura-ish, if I do say so myself. I love the fact that these rear bumpers have all these little aero bits on them, and this diffuser. When I first saw an M4 in person, I thought to myself, man, this diffuser looks aftermarket. It's actually not. This is what M diffusers look like these days, which is a far, far cry from the relatively standard E92 M3, for example, or even F80s as well. So having said that, as you can see, there is an AFE power valve exhaust on this car. It sounds really nice, so I'll be keeping that. This is a pretty standard car. There are no carbon fiber exterior bits on it, relatively low spec vehicle. Like I said, Fiona red interior, carbon fiber interior, and that's really all there is to it. I didn't want to find a overly optioned up car. I love these wheels. They are a massive pain in the ass to clean though. If you have a detailer, make him do this work, not yourself. What else? You've got M side skirts as you would normally on past M models. Now here's the thing. These little accents, these flares, on an E90 or E92, they were actually functional back in the day. They are no longer functional. This car does have the BMW laser lights though, and that is a big difference. And how you can tell is that the driving lights over here, instead of being a little sliver, it is a full C shape, basically a full C shape. They're much larger, in other words. What else is super cool is that these driving lights, the color comes from nothing but a module. So if you wanted CSL style lights, the yellow for example, you can buy a module for 200 bucks. It takes about 15 minutes per side, and you've got CSL looking lights, which I think is really, really nice. One last styling cue I kind of missed. So the hood on modern day M3s and M4s, the G80, G82, the hoods no longer have a power dome. And I miss that. I really, really like power domes from past M-cars. Now we've got this. These little lines. I'm not really sure what to make of it. They look kind of all right, but you've got this accent here, you've got this accent here, and that, and it kind of leads to the carbon fiber roof. Kind of miss the power dome. I wish we had it back. Next time you see this car, it will have a completely different front end. So overall, because most of the car is pretty good looking, I do actually enjoy the way the car looks. And if you wanted to change this on a budget, got plenty of aftermarket grille options that do improve the appearance of this front end quite a bit, if I do say so myself. So having said that, let's move on to the interior. Here we are inside the BMW M4, and this is obviously the pre-facelift interior with the two separate displays. And to be completely honest, I prefer this interior. Actually, I know a lot of other people prefer this interior over the facelifted one. And in fact, before we started filming this review for my car, I went and I drove a brand new 2024, which has the new interior, and oh my God, there's so much going on in there. For example, the AC controls on the new cars are no longer here. They are not physical buttons. It's a little setting on the bottom of the screen that you have to press, and it pops up the AC controls and all the options, and so you've got to finagle with everything manually. It's such a pain. You've got to adjust everything through the screen as opposed to having functional buttons, and it's such a pain because this was so clever. I love this little display here. It's just so easy to access and use. I think they made a big mistake with the new displays. Having said that, in general, these 21 to 23 model cars, wonderful interiors. It's really one of the reasons why I wanted one. It's kind of won me over. It's so comfortable. The iDrive has really come such a long way. Having said that, through your buttons, you've got media, you've got your Bluetooth, your comm button, your home button, your map, and your navigation. Map and navigation are two different things. You've got a back button, your options button for car settings, etc. You've got your parking brake, which is necessary for this, traction off, and then you've got your setup settings over here. Now, setup allows you to set up your M mode, or rather your M1 and M2 buttons. So you click that, and you've got your car settings, your performance settings, in other words. You've got your engine settings, your gear shift assistant, which blips the throttle for you during downshifts and upshifts, or holds the throttle, or holds the RPM so that you don't buck on certain shifts. Your chassis settings range from comfort, sport to sport plus, steering, comfort, sport, and your brake. So actually the car has electric brakes, so it can adjust your brake firmness. I've left that in comfort. So your home display will show you your nav, your audio, and some other things. So you can personalize this by holding the tile, and you'll get this menu, and you can add a page, or you can delete a page, or you can just hit done if you wanted. Your apps consist of Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You can also purchase more from going to the BMW store. You can see what apps you have currently at the moment. You've got Alexa, if you need that, BMW Assist, My BMW, if you want to start the car through your phone, but that is a subscription, so I'm not going to do that. This I actually liked a lot. Uneven road surface. Now, we live in Florida, and typically Florida roads are really, really flat and very well paved, and they're very well taken care of. But when you live near a school zone, you've got school bumps all around, you've got road bumps near the school zones, this actually recognizes that, and it recognizes it from as far as a quarter mile away. I didn't realize it up until I drove it, and it said uneven surface ahead in this display. That is so cool. In a place like New York, this would be extremely handy. I love this infotainment system. This is probably the best iDrive system that BMW's ever had. Moreover, as I had mentioned, my car is fairly basic, but it has the carbon fiber interior over here, and you've got some lighting over there because that door is open. That blinks instead of having a marker or reflector. You've got the Harman Kardon. You've got USBs. Got a 12 volt You've got phone storage over here. It's kind of oddly shaped, and 2 cup holders. You've got your display over here, and that display changes. So if I were to enable M mode, there we go, your display changes from what you want to see. You've got engine temperatures, you've got boost pressure, you've got RPM on both sides, kind of like the Audi RS6 did and other Audi RS models, in fact, as well. And you can configure the screen, you can move things around. And when you press the BC button, you can see various other components on this right-hand display. There you go. So a lot of data that's also in the iDrive system, so it's not that important, but for me personally, I just keep it to the music setting. You also do have a G meter. And that's really all about there is to it in this interior. I will mention that despite being a coupe, wonderful space in the back seats. My son, I pick him up from school in this car all the time. He's about 4'3", 7 years old, and he's got no problems being back there. I've been in the back seat of this car as well. No problems fitting in there at all. I'm 6'1". So that's been always one of the strongest suits of any BMW M car. The E92 M3 was the same way, and this is as well. So there's a reason why I bought this car, and I think because it's a fantastically built vehicle. Before I go, if anybody's noticed this shifter, yes, this is an M Performance shifter. No, you cannot buy from the BMW dealership or spec one, brand new. This is from an F80. You just retrofit it. You take this knob off the F80 one if you purchase one from BMW, and then basically swap it onto this boot over here. So if anybody notices. And having said that, it's time to go for a drive. Welcome to the driving portion of this car. Now, I'm gonna let you in a little bit of a secret. Well, we're in the future. It's 5 months into the future because we filmed that portion 5 months ago, and the weather was absolutely brutal. So we thought, okay, we'll finish the review another day. Well, another day never came because life happened. So here we are. The M4 has a new face, and boy, does it look so much better for it. I mean, everywhere I go, this car gets a lot of compliments on its newfound looks. And people ask, what is it? Some people know. If you're a BMW enthusiast, they know. ADRO, cool. And so this was definitely one of the best mods that I've done to the car. And the mod that I intended on doing from the beginning. I think this car looks beautiful now with this new fascia. But the M4 is no longer my car. I sold it. I've got to turn it in to Porsche Melbourne in about 2 days. And why did I sell the car? Well, it's not because I didn't love it. Well, I guess you could say I didn't love it. The biggest reason why I never fell in love with this car was this gearbox. Man, it's the 1-2 shift that everyone complains about. It's true. It is as annoying as they say it is. The first gear, that 1-2 shift, engaging into second, you'd have to shift at around 12 to 14 miles per hour in order to get a smooth shift and not jerk. See, like that. What is 14 miles per hour? I might as well start this car in second. It doesn't make sense. And the reason why this car does that is because of rev hang. Now, if you're not familiar with what rev hang is, basically it means the revs don't drop fast enough. And so what you've got happening is you go to shift, and let's say you shift at around 3,000 RPM from first to second. Well, it's hanging at 3,000 for about a half a second, and it slowly comes back down to where you actually should be shifting. This is completely not how Porsche does it. And now the reason for rev hang is one of two, or a combination of both. And I think in this case, it's a combination of both. It's a heavy flywheel and gear spacing. The gear spacing between first and second on these transmissions, and that goes for the M2 as well, it's a little too wide. So you've got a gap. And unfortunately, with this heavier flywheel, which is for NVH purposes, something that BMW does, the shift kind of sucks. You clunk, it jerks into it all the time. You can slip the clutch, which is not good. And as a result, you'll get a smoother shift. But why? That's just counterintuitive. It's not the way it should be done. The shifter feel is great. Yeah, it's a little rubbery. That's actually not my biggest complaint with this car. The clutch is fantastic. The clutch feels like there's more feedback in the clutch on this car than there was on the GT3. It's a little bit more sprung, but overall, there's a lot going for this transmission. But unfortunately, it's true. It's everything that people say about the manual in this car is true. This was an afterthought. This was just kind of put into these cars, including the M2, as a way to appease and shut up people like me. But let's not be negative about the whole thing, because at the end of the day, this is still an M car, and we're going to talk about all the things that make it great, some of the things that kind of let me down, but for the most part, why I sold it. Woo! Because this thing does move. It's fast. It's fast. This is a fast car. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy where the BMW M division is today compared to where they were about 10 years ago. You know, I love my E92. I still think that's the best M3 ever made. And yes, I do regret selling it. But we are at performance levels that supercars were at less than a decade ago. And just the thought of being able to throw a couple of $1,000s into this car, especially an automatic, and stomping something like a Huracan, it's bewildering. I never in my wildest dreams would I have thought a BMW M3 or a BMW M4 would destroy a Huracan or any Lamborghini in a straight line. That's obviously going to start changing as, you know, the new Huracan is going to be a twin-turbo V8, so they're going to have their own aftermarket scene, but it's still incredible. Absolutely incredible what exotics are fighting against these days, and this is one of the reasons why the M3 and M4 and the G80 platform in general commands an $80,000 base tag. So it's just something you have to live with. An overly refined car, especially when it's a performance car or performance-oriented car, it kind of leaves something left to the imagination, leaves something left to be desired. And unfortunately, this car does leave something to be desired. It's extremely fast. 0 to 60 in the threes, low threes, if you clutch dump this thing, you know, with an automatic, high twos, and it can handle gobbles amount of power. I mean, the S58 is the second coming of the 2JZ. I know a lot of people thought N54 was. No, the S58, and by association B58, this is one of the greatest inline-six engines of all time. You could throw anything at one of these, especially the automatic, because, you know, clutch. And extremely capable cars, extremely capable. But a little bit soulless, you know. I bought this car while the GT3 was in my possession. That's the Adam LZ, Matt Armstrong, now Freddie's car, that GT3. While it was in my possession, I had to have a manual transmission car. I really missed having a manual. And so this was available and I jumped on it. And come to think of it, I think I was maybe a little bit overzealous. But how does it handle? It handles really well. It sounds pretty good. It handles better than an E92, but E92s have more communication, especially through the steering. The E92s flexed a little bit more, and they were extremely firm, extremely rough. But again, the E92s, there was more feedback with an E92. The response from this steering wheel, look at this. Huge problem I had with the Z06, but this responds really, really quickly. Everything. I'm bobbling around in here, shaking the steering wheel around a little bit, but this car has fantastic steering response. Even though the feedback is not good at all, the response is terrific. We're gonna go through a road that I particularly like quite a lot. Here we go. So immediately, the first thing I notice is that the steering feedback isn't quite as positive, and I blame electric steering for that. That's ultimately what I blame any feedback, lack thereof, on. It's the electric steering. The chassis is really nice. It has solid underpinnings, but once you start really throwing the car around a bend and you have to hold that turn, and if you're making adjustments through the steering, you don't feel those adjustments happening. And that's so crucial because you don't feel the car and what it's doing. And that has been my biggest problem in regards to the geometry, the suspension geometry with this car. And I've looked at it all, and I've tested other M3s and M4s thinking that something was wrong with mine, and it's not. We're gonna go through this turn now. It's just too isolated. I steer, the car responds, but I don't know what it's doing underneath it all. I just don't get it. It's, you know, a lot of people talk about dance partners. The car has to be a dance partner. I hate stuff like that. I hate cheesy sayings like that. But I also understand what they mean by that. And, you know, you should kind of, you have to feel what your partner's going to do. And I have no idea how to dance, by the way. You have to have an idea of what your partner's going to do and how your partner's going to respond during certain movements. And I don't have that sensation with this car at all. We're gonna go through a little S over here. Yeah. I just, you know, you set up the car into its firmest settings and you're just not quite getting what you want out of it. Gear shift assistance. I like it. I use it. I am not the most coordinated of individuals. I can blip the throttle, I can rev match, but I can't brake and rev match at the same time. I don't know, I just end up pushing the brake even harder. But it's definitely a handy tool to have. Credit to BMW for building just one of the all-time best inline sixes, one of the all-time best BMW engines. Personally, I still prefer the S65 over anything. I miss my E92. I did sell it to buy this car, and I do have regrets over that. Hopefully the 911 makes up for that regret, because overall what's actually funny is that the E92 M3 is the one car that held on to the longest of any of the 30-40 cars that I've owned, and that was close to 4 years of ownership. This is the shortest I've ever owned a car, and that would be 6 months of ownership. So now, having said all of that, overall, I do think that the M3, the M4, the G80 platform as a whole, fantastic, wonderful cars. I would take this car over a C63 any day, especially because I don't like four-cylinder, super performance, big giant elephant cars. And that's what the C63 has become, weighing at 4,800 pounds. And I had an RS5 that I was driving for a brief period, and it was okay, but nowhere near this level of performance, nowhere near this level of sophistication and chassis control and suspension control and the overall handling. Yes, the steering feel on this car is not that great, which I'd mentioned, but everything else, really, this car does excel at. It really does. So if you like BMW M-cars, AMGs, Audi RS cars, Porsches, etc., please like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you've enjoyed this video.